Times. Check, check, check. There it is. Still kind of ironing out the wrinkles on my live streaming, but getting better. Next thing I need to do is remove the damn Zoom logo. But that's okay. As I've said before, I had some problems with the software. I can't use an encoder because my computer's too old. So I had to settle for Zoom. But that's okay. Zoom does the trick. A lot of my peers in this world use it, and it works fine. So, wanted to start off today by talking about some breaking news. If you've been following what's going on with the whole Trump Russiagate thing and the Durham report that just came out, I talked about it a little bit yesterday, and I went through, was it yesterday? It might have been the day before. Whatever the case, I went through a college paper about the kind of I guess the spread. There's a word I can't think of right now, but basically the normalization of propaganda in the United States kind of subverse, or what's the best word? I'm like drawing complete blanks today. Under the radar propagandization of the United States under the Obama administration that no one really saw or paid attention to. But I think you can see the results of it now, in that the Democratic Party is the one that supports war and censorship and is trying to weaponize the Justice Department and the legal system to squash dissent of any kind. And, you know, there's a new target in the form of right-wing or domestic terrorists. And look, it's fine if these are legitimate threats, let's go after them. But in most cases, they're not legitimate threats. So let's watch this real quick. I caught a little bit of this morning. And let's go over here. So what they're doing here is they've got whistleblowers from the FBI talking about the politicization. How do you, I don't know. Basically the politicizing of the FBI. I am just not on my words today. What's wrong? You know, I need to take an English refresher course. But listen to some of this and let's talk about it. Wait.
Thank you, Chairman Jordan, for your leadership. The FBI has been victimized.
Okay. Why can't we hear this?
By political capture, and that politicization has manifested.
Okay.
In the targeting of Americans who never deserve to have this government.
Jesus fuck. Let's try this again. Get the fuck out of here.
Government weaponized against them.
Wow, this is really shitty. Can I hear it now? Yeah, I can. You know, It's probably in my settings. Let me just check a couple more things here real quick. Bear with me. My sincere apologies. That's the problem right there. Okay, let's try this one more time. Zoom isn't quite as cool as I thought it was.
All those bad acts, they stepped forward and they were retaliated against.
Okay, so now that I've got my shit fixed. Okay, so this morning I saw this clip of Matt Gaetz and the Republicans in the House who are actually doing some good work. And I've never been a fan of Republicans whatsoever, but I do like Matt Gaetz. And basically what they've been working on is this weaponization of the Justice Department. And I'll go back and show you some earlier video after this, but this is kind of the breaking news part of the story where they've got some whistleblowers testifying about the weaponization of the FBI. So check this out.
One of our great members, the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Gaetz.
Thank you, Chairman Jordan, for your leadership. The FBI has been victimized by political capture, and that politicization has manifested in the.
Okay, the FBI has been the victim. I don't know if you've been paying attention to history at all, Mr. Gaetz, but did you see what they did to Martin Luther King and Malcolm X? And I don't know if they're technically involved in the JFK or Bobby Kennedy assassinations, but the deep state definitely was. So I don't know if they're necessarily victims. I think this is a pervasive thing. If you've ever read about J. Edgar Hoover and COINTELPRO, I mean, let's keep going.
Targeting of Americans who never deserved to have this government weaponized against them. Whistleblowers saw those bad acts. They stepped forward and they were retaliated against and crushed as a consequence. And our work today will build on the work of Special Counsel Durham, who said.
So what he's talking about here is interesting because the House Republicans claim that the whistleblowers they were working with are MIA now, some of them. That they disappeared, that they're either being jailed or they're being silenced in some way. They've been fired, they've been cut off. Who knows? But that's not a good thing to hear. And of course, the Democrats are all downplaying. Oh, it's a conspiracy theory. It's a nothing burger. I mean, it's not a nothing burger.
Said recently that at the FBI there is confirmation bias, an overwillingness to rely on information from individuals connected to political opponents and action without appropriate objectivity. One of the whistleblowers.
So the Durham report already proved this, and what's interesting, and Aaron Matei brought this up on Jimmy Dore's live stream yesterday. Durham was unable to subpoena a lot of the key figures in this scam. So Peter Strzok, the best example, was the guy who, got busted texting, oh, we'll never let Trump be president. So da-da-da-da-da. Well, in Jeff Gerth's reporting, Peter Strzok was the one who said to the press came to him with stuff that he wouldn't verify. And his quote was something like, you're going to ruin your credibility to the press. And so what they did most of the time with that case was lie by omission. But let's keep going.
Whistleblowers we'll hear from today served in the United States Marine Corps, served as a local cop, Garrett O'Boyle, and this is his testimony regarding that political capture.
Do you believe that the FBI has become political?
I do. I think most people out in the field try to avoid that politicization of the agency, which is good, but it's gotten to a point, it seems to me, that it's like a cancerous point where the FBI has let itself become enveloped in this politicization and weaponization that
can't go?
Oh,
Do
God.
this to clear out stuck poop fast. Fiber helps you poop, right? Nope. According to New York's top.
I don't know how to even begin to fix it.
One group that saw that weaponization work against them were Catholics. The FBI.
By the way, I don't know why they're targeting me with constipation ads because I shit fine. So just full disclosure there. I don't need constipation drugs. I can take a dump with the best of them.
Field office in Richmond put out a memo saying that violent extremists would find the Catholic ideology attractive and would attempt to connect with Catholic adherents, that extremists would show an interest in Catholic congregations over the next 12 to 24 months.
So this is really interesting that they're targeting Catholics because Joe Biden is, very famously a devout Catholic, supposedly, which maybe explains his penchant for little kids. I don't know.
Leading up to the presidential election. Isn't that an interesting coincidence? And the memo calls for the FBI to develop sources with Catholic congregations to try to obtain information about those folks. Another group that saw weaponization turn against them, parents who attended school board meetings. You'll hear today from Steve Friend, who worked for the FBI and actually found himself ridiculed at his own FBI office because he too was a parent who attended a school board meeting. This is Steve Friend.
Given your law enforcement background, does knowing that you could be investigated by the FBI for speaking up at your child's school board meeting chill parents from exercising their First Amendment rights?
Yes.
And you said you had attended a school board meeting and you were nervous that you could be under federal investigation. Is that correct?
Yes, my colleagues teased me about it.
Americans who were in Washington, D.C. on January 6th who committed no crimes, who simply attended a rally,
This is interesting. Listen to
saw the FBI weaponized against them. George Hill was an FBI employee working out of the Boston field office, and he talks about the pressure that the Washington field office was putting on Boston, and when they tried to get predicate evidence, they couldn't get it for a very interesting reason. This is George Hill.
Joe Bonavolante said, no, we're not opening up cases on people who went to a rally. And I forgot a key part. The SSA for CT2 said, happy to do it. Show us where they were inside the Capitol, and we'll look into it. To which WFO said, we can't show you those videos unless you can tell us the exact time and place those individuals were inside the Capitol. To which the SSA responded back, and I was privy to these conversations firsthand. Why can't you show us? Why can't you just send us, give us access to the 11,000 hours of video that's available? Because there may be UC's undercover officers or CHS's confidential human sources on those videos whose identity we need to protect.
Marcus Allen, an FBI.
Did you hear that? That's really interesting. That's an FBI agent saying they asked to see surveillance footage of the Capitol from January 6th, and the leadership told them, give us the specific time and date, and room or whatever, and we'll show you that footage. And they said, we just want to see all of it. And they said, no, we can't give you that footage because there are confidential human sources that we risk outing. So, I mean, the whole term Fedsurrection, that sums it up right there. That's why the Congress flipped out about Tucker Carlson showing that footage. The Democrats completely, and this is coming from someone who used to be a staunch Democrat. The Democrats stage managed the entire January 6th, quote unquote, insurrection. When they talk about cherry picking, that's exactly what they did. And once Tucker Carlson showed some footage that they didn't allow into that hearing, they lost their minds over it. Chuck Schumer went on the floor and begged Rupert Murdoch to take Tucker Carlson off the air. And let's just watch some of that footage because I have it. So where is it? I saved it. I saved the footage, my friends. I saved it for you. Yeah, it's just the. It's not on YouTube. It's all right. Listen to this. Wait, let me just make sure real quick. Because of the way my software has been working, let me just make sure that I got. Okay, good. Here we go.
Should be presented to the public. In free countries, governments do not lie about protests as a pretext to gain more power for themselves. They don't selectively edit videos for propaganda services and then lie about them in fake hearings and show trials. But that's exactly what happened. And every member of Congress should ask why that happened. But Democrats in the Senate, the Democratic leader in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, is not asking why. Instead, Chuck Schumer went on the Senate floor today to explode and to say that showing that video, evidence of wrongdoing by the federal government, including the security forces, the police department that Nancy Pelosi personally controlled, letting the public see any of that is a threat to democracy. Watch.
Last night, millions of Americans tuned in to one of the most shameful hours we have ever seen on cable television. Fox News host Tucker Carlson ran a lengthy segment last night arguing the January 6th Capitol attack was not a violent insurrection. I don't think I've ever seen a primetime cable news anchor manipulate his viewers the way Mr. Carlson did last night. I don't think I've ever seen an anchor treat the American people and American democracy with such disdain.
There's nothing that shameful that has ever appeared on American television in the history of the medium. And so, on the basis of that, the self-evident outrage of showing the public video that it paid for and has a right to.
So I just want to take a second here to remind you about people like Kyle Kulinski smearing Tucker Carlson, like literally digging up video of Bill O'Reilly to smear Tucker Carlson. And Kyle never once mentions any of this, if you've noticed. I'm sure he's on the shit lib January 6th was an insurrection train too. And that's why. But that's why these people have lost so much credibility. And we'll get into the crystal ball thing again later, the RFK crystal ball thing, because I have another piece of great footage. But it's sad to me that that people like Kyle have fallen so far and lost so much trust, because I still think Kyle is, he has good views and on a lot of stuff. But when I see people, calling him out for BS, I just think about stuff like this, where with the Tucker Carlson thing specifically, he played dumb about it, Tucker Carlson. And I showed you footage before of Joe Rogan and Dave Smith talking about Tucker, and Kyle pretends that Tucker's some far right, guy. And he definitely has opinions that are like hard right that I don't agree with. I don't agree with everything Tucker says, but to kind of paint him as Bill O'Reilly, to use Bill O'Reilly, the corpse of Bill O'Reilly, this ancient, irrelevant person, to kind of speak to the situation with Tucker Carlson is laughable at best, because there are so many sources like this, or like you could listen to Tucker talk himself, Kyle, or you could listen to Joe Rogan and Dave Smith talk about it. So anyway, let's finish this out, because this is definitely worthwhile. I think he goes into it a little bit more about the Schumer stuff.
Chuck Schumer called for the censorship of that video. Any information, and he did not dispute that it was accurate, that damages a storyline his party constructed and used must be squelched. And Schumer was explicit on that point. Because that video contradicted lies told by the Democratic Party, Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, Chuck Schumer demanded that our bosses pull this show off the air.
You hear
He's
that?
going to come back tonight with another segment. Fox News should tell him not to. Fox News, Rupert Murdoch, tell Carlson not to run a second segment of lies. I urge Fox News to order Carlson to cease propagating the big lie on his network, and to level with their viewers about the truth behind the efforts.
The truth that we've carefully stage managed.
Conduct like theirs is just asking for another January 6th. to happen.
So
It's a threat to democracy. Pull him.
you know what this sounds exactly like is the neoconservatives after 9/11. If you question us, you're going to cause another 9/11. This is exactly what they're doing. So they manufactured, and I don't know if you remember the drama queening when January 6th happened, but there were liberals like, this is worse than 9/11. This is 9/11 times 10. Oh, the drama queening was literally just out of control, ridiculous around the J6 stuff. So just to kind of reinforce the credibility of Matt Gaetz here, I want to show you this clip, which I've shown before in previous casts, where Gaetz is talking about domestic terror funding.
A bill, they even got more funding, and they're saying that they're going to be doubling the amount of people that they already arrested.
Can you guys I had a whistleblower come to me and talk about how these specialized units that have FBI, CIA, that were targeted at extremism in, Afghanistan, Iraq, Yemen, all over the world, that now those very same teams and those very same tools and those very same national security authorities are exclusively being turned inward, to instead of finding, somebody that's building a bomb to blow up an embassy abroad, they're like, analyzing what some guy who lives in his mom's basement is putting on his blog that's read by tens of people. Yeah. And then that now, after they were turned inward as a result of this omnibus spending legislation, they are flooded with cash. I mean, just so much money that is now in the hands of these people who wake up every day saying, how can I go find a white supremacist extremist to hunt down? And, if you create an industry of witch hunters, right, like, you're going to find more witches, like, even if they're not actually witches.
And as you mentioned
there it is. So you saw that, like, he talks about the money that they have. You saw that stage managed march with all the guys in matching uniforms who are mysteriously physically fit. There's no fat dudes. No one has a beard, and no one's allowed to see their face or question them. That's funded by what Gaetz was just talking about. I can almost guarantee you. Okay, I can guarantee you. I'm so confident that you could look under the hood of that. And they did it a couple months ago in Idaho too. They had a bunch of the same guys, all wearing masks with zip ties, so you can't identify them. Oh my God, it's the Patriot Front. They're so anti-Semitic and anti-gay and anti-vax, and read the list of liberal boogeymen. They're that. And that's the result of this anti-terror funding that Gaetz is talking about being turned inward. So another thing I wanted to kind of touch on while we're talking about this is this tactic is not uncommon, and there's a precedent for it. So I don't know if you know who this man is, but his name is Rick Wilson, and he is a fundraiser he was a fundraiser for the Democratic, or for the Republicans, but he became a fundraiser for the Democrats in the era of Trump, right? And my connection's starting to buffer funny, so it's probably because of this garbage website that I just opened to show you. But what I wanted to show you here is this article about the Lincoln Project, which is helmed by Rick Wilson. And this is the kind of stuff that the Lincoln Project does. Lincoln Project members pose as white supremacists at Virginia GOP event. 5 members carried tiki torches at a campaign stop for Glenn Youngkin, the Republican candidate for Virginia governor. So the point of me showing you this, and this is from The Guardian, I believe. Yeah, this is from The Guardian. The point of me showing you this is that there's a precedent for this type of thing. We're not just the people that are calling bullshit on these fake white supremacist marches are not just doing it because we're conspiracy theorists. We're doing it because there is a legitimate precedent and pretext for these fake protests. I mean, I just showed you. They tried to do it as a campaign trick. And so now they're doing it because they're flush with cash, as Gaetz just told you. And they are basically using that cash to create an imaginary threat. And the results of this, even with this kid who, remember the kid who leaked, I mean, the news cycles happen so fast and people have such lack of short-term memory. But do you remember this kid a couple weeks ago who leaked these documents from the Pentagon that kind of displayed the problems with the Ukraine war? That's just another example where they go, we gotta lock down the internet because look at all these white supremacist protests happening. Look at this Patriot Front group. They're connecting on social media, and we need to spy on people and shut down speech on social media, so that there's no one protesting or And what's really great about these Patriot Front fake protests is they always have this like, we need to take America back bent to them. Like I think the guys in the most recent march had a sign that said "Reclaim America," and so the mental psyop going on here is, if you think that America is way off the rails and it needs to be reclaimed by the people, you're a threat and you need to be dealt with. And that's what obviously these whistleblowers are showing. Just to bring it back, to this whistleblower thing. And so I don't know, what the answer is to this. I don't know, where we go from here. But I was also watching homegirl Whitney Webb the other night on the PBD podcast, I think, Valuetainment guy. And I thought her take was one of the best I've heard so far. So let's listen to that real quick, because Whitney has some very intelligent things to say here.
This interests you, and if you're inspired by it, go do those two families.
Sure, but
okay?
I do think, if you're talking about Trump specifically, I do think he has some conflicts of interest and has for a long time.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, so, at the end of the day, if the issue is, let's stop the vilification of nationalism. Let's make moves to protect our national sovereignty. I think that has to be a mass movement from the American public. Because, I see what you're saying, but at the same time, I think so many people in the United States, whether it's been instilled in them through education or culture or whatever, seem to think that as long as we get the right guy in the White House, everything's going to magically fix itself in this country. And I do not think that is possible. Believe what you want to believe about Trump. He came in 2016 with great intentions and all of that. If you want to believe that, I don't necessarily believe that. But if you do, he wasn't able to do that. Why? One guy can't fix it. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. running right now, he's obviously very different than a lot of these guys. Do you think if he got in, he could fix it all? I think the problem is so big at this point, and that so many of these institutions we've been naming off, it's the most powerful institutions in the U.S. government. They said before, like with Nixon and Watergate, it's just, some rotten apples in the barrel, but keep the barrel. I'm telling you, the barrel is rotten. And the only way we can fix that in this country is that people have to realize that, and people have to start taking responsibility for their own lives.
But what does that mean, though? That's a good motivational speech, but what does that mean?
Here's what it means. What do you need to be self-sufficient as a community, as an individual, as a family?
Not relying on the government.
But also multinational corporations, right? We have outsourced from our communities, from our country, almost everything we produce to foreign powers that don't like us, right? Or we're in trillions of dollars in debt to our ostensible main enemy. So that I would argue that's because we have our government, corporations, but the American people have co-signed it because they've been told this is more convenient, this will be cheaper, blah, 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 outsourced so much of what we need to survive as a people, as communities, as families, to people that don't like us. And that's not necessarily just China here, right? That's these corporations, these elite families that own most of corporate America and the banks and what have you. They don't like the little people.
Yeah. So,
You know
by
what
the
I
way,
mean?
if you're listening to this, folks, you're enjoying.
So the pretext for this conversation too was this guy was like, hey, name all the institutions that have screwed America over, or just, general America, the plebes, if you will, the average person, the working class. And every one of those institutions hates Trump. That's the point this guy was making. The FBI, the CIA, the Department of Homeland Security, the Bushes, the Clintons. Whitney has a much more cynical, measured take, of course, because she's done the research on all this stuff and she's followed the money to everyone. And I like her take because I didn't vote for Trump in 2016, and I didn't really realize how demonized and raw they did him until recently. But I don't think he's a savior, just like I don't think Elon Musk is the savior of free speech. But I can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good either, right? I think that, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, where it's like with Trump, enough of these security, institutions hate him that, despite the other stuff I don't like about Trump, I would probably vote for him based on that alone, because he's already promising to dismantle them. So I'm gonna have to take a break for a minute. I'm gonna come back in a few, but I wanted to toot my own horn a little bit because the last song that I put out had a sample of Whitney Webb, and I'm not going to play the whole song or anything, but I did want to share that with you because Whitney is massive. She's one of the journalists out there, like Matt Taibbi or a Glenn Greenwald, who's actually doing some real work. So what's up? I'm about to cut out. Hey.
Gave up a lot of their rights because they were told that
So it's all sped up and kind of
after 9/11 Americans gave up a lot of their rights because they were told that
certain things had to be given up in order to be safe and more
secure.
Now we're being told that we have to give up and totally change
Our way of life
in a lot of ways to be safe from, the coronavirus.
But
a lot of these changes they're saying now will remain permanent and go away, and I think there are a lot of concerns there that people should think really critically about.
So that's a sample based. I put that together based on a conversation she had with Jimmy Dore at the outset of COVID, just about being skeptical of what's going on with the COVID thing. So anyway, I'm going to cut out for a minute, but I'm going to go live again probably in another hour or two because I have a bunch more stuff to talk about. I just need to take a break for a few. So thanks for listening, and take care of yourselves out there.